Years back, during my high school days, life was a hectic mix of school and a part-time job at a local diner. This chilling incident unfolded one winter evening when a snowstorm loomed on the horizon. The forecast had everyone on edge, particularly me, as I had to work until 8 p.m. after school. Fortunately, the snow held off until the end of my shift. Driving home through the intensifying snowfall, I managed to reach home safely. Once indoors, I tackled some homework before retreating to my bedroom for a night of video games. With a Friday night ahead and no school the next day, I planned to enjoy the solitude. My parents retired early, leaving me alone in my front-facing bedroom. Drawn to the mesmerizing snowfall, I left the window cover half open, enjoying the calming spectacle. Little did I know that this decision would lead to an inexplicable encounter. As I immersed myself in gaming, something caught my eye outside the window. A man, distant but discernible, walked down the sidewalk in front of our house. Unfamiliar faces in our close-knit neighborhood intrigued me. The late-night stroll in the midst of a blizzard piqued my curiosity. Fixated on the man's movements, I paused my game, wondering about his purpose. To my surprise, he veered into our front yard, cutting through the snow towards our front steps. A surge of anxiety gripped me, contemplating the stranger's intentions. Stealthily, I left my room and peered down the hallway, cautious not to reveal my presence. Through the large front window, his shadow hinted at an unsettling pause. Standing on our front steps, the man remained silent, defying my expectation of a knock or doorbell ring. Minutes passed, each one amplifying the eerie silence. Suddenly, he retraced his steps, returning through the yard. A jolt of fear coursed through me as he stopped by the living room window, possibly attempting to peer inside. Retreating to my room, I watched from a safe distance. Moments later, I cautiously investigated. To my relief, he vanished from my line of sight. I proceeded to check every window in the house, each one seemingly secure until I reached the kitchen window overlooking the backyard. There, I glimpsed the intruder standing on the back patio, dangerously close to the back door. Panic set in as I rushed back to my room, grappling with the decision of whether to involve the police, wake my parents, or simply barricade myself until he left. The situation escalated further when, a minute later, a knock echoed through the house. Returning to the hallway, I witnessed the man once again on the front step. Instinctively, I refused to answer the door. Strangely, he refrained from knocking again, lingering for several tense minutes before departing. As he walked away, I observed him returning to the sidewalk and disappearing from view. Terrified and uncertain of the man's motives, I stayed vigilant until the early hours. Mercifully, he did not return that night, and I eventually succumbed to sleep. The next morning, I recounted the unnerving events to my parents. They dismissed it as the antics of a possibly inebriated neighbor. Though the episode was explained away, the memory of that night still sends shivers down my spine. The unsettling sight of the man outside our home, with his mysterious intentions, remains etched in my mind as the most chilling experience of my life. For the past 2 years, I've been working at a department store. While retail wasn't my dream job, it was a significant improvement from my previous stint in the food industry. I gladly traded the chaotic world of food for the nuances of customer service, maneuvering through the post-Christmas lull and winter chill in a Canadian city. The evenings in January were particularly dead, with fewer customers braving the snowstorms and the biting cold. This mid-January night unfolded as just another quiet Wednesday. The store, scheduled to close at 9 o'clock, usually witnessed a dearth of activity by 8 o'clock. The staff, spread thin across the vast space, often found themselves with more downtime than tasks. On this particular night, I found myself stationed at the fitting room, a position I occasionally rotated into from my usual spot at the cash register. As the evening progressed, I helped organize the beauty section adjacent to the fitting room, chatted with a coworker from the jewelry section, and assisted the occasional customer seeking the perfect fit. Among them was a man who approached the fitting room with 2 dress shirts. He seemed unremarkable, older, tall, somewhat stocky, and adorned in a plainly expensive suit with a stylish shoulder bag. I presumed he had stopped by after a day of work. Mandatory procedures dictated that I count the number of clothing items customers brought in, providing them with corresponding numbers. This was an anti-theft measure. The man, with a thick, unplaceable accent, possibly Russian, entered the fitting room without raising any suspicions. After a few moments, he emerged. I took back the shirts, assuming he'd changed his mind about the purchase. To my surprise, he lingered. Sensing an odd tension, I asked if there was anything else he needed or if he still wanted the shirts. His response was a silent smile, sending an uneasy shiver down my spine. Attempting to diffuse the discomfort, I nervously laughed and began organizing the area near the fitting room entrance. However, when I turned around, he remained. Politely, I inquired if there was anything more I could assist him with, and this is when things took a disturbing turn. With an unsettling grin, he informed me that he would be waiting for me at 9:30 outside the store. Confused, I questioned how he knew my shift's end time, which, in reality, wasn't hard to guess. But his knowledge of a specific door we used for exiting, hidden from customers, raised my unease. Unsettled but striving to maintain composure, I declined his offer, citing a need to get home and study. He laughed off my refusal, taking a step closer. Instinctively, I stepped back, only to hear him express his anticipation of our meeting in the alley behind the store. His knowledge of this specific exit point, a detail employees weren't supposed to disclose, rattled me. Feeling desperate, I mentioned having a boyfriend who would pick me up. His response was a dismissive laugh, claiming it never stopped him before. Fear began to well up, and I excused myself to use the phone, hoping to call for help. The coordinator I reached was preoccupied with a customer, and the call ended abruptly. Panic surged as the man followed me to my desk. Desperate to escape the situation, I called my manager, who advised reporting him immediately. The security guard, informed of the situation, monitored the man through the cameras. As the clock neared 8:30, I prepared to start my closing tasks, still haunted by the man's unsettling comments. The security guard called back, revealing the man hadn't left and was circling the store. The dread intensified, knowing he remained nearby. When the store closed, 2 coworkers, Luke and Ryan, both from the warehouse, ensured I wasn't alone on my way to the car. Grateful for their company, I took the long route home, paranoid about potential followers. As I entered the safety of my home, relief washed over me. Nowadays, I adhere to the buddy system, never walking alone after a shift. I'm hyper-aware of my surroundings and no longer wear my name tag. Though nothing physical happened, the experience served as a stark reminder that no one should endure such discomfort at work or anywhere else. If someone makes you uneasy, speak up. You deserve a safe and respectful workplace. Years ago, I embarked on a trip with my partner, Lisa, my buddy Mark, and his girlfriend, Emily, to the vast wilderness surrounding the Alaskan city of Juneau. Mark and I share a passion for outdoor adventures like hiking, snowboarding, and mountaineering. Since Mark's family owned a cabin in the area, we decided to spend a weekend there. Our chosen dates coincided with a forecast predicting heavy snowfall. Upon reaching the cabin, we found a light dusting of snow on the ground, with more anticipated the following day. Nestled deep in the woods, the cabin exuded a tranquil isolation, a perfect setting for our getaway. That first night, we indulged in the hot tub, sipping wine and relishing the serene beauty of the snowy landscape. The cabin's remoteness, surrounded by the hushed woods, hinted at the wintry adventure awaiting us. The next morning unveiled a light snowfall, an auspicious prelude to the forecasted storm. Ignoring the chilly forecast, Mark prepared the family quad parked in the large shed behind the cabin. After a bit of coaxing with my car, the quad roared to life, and we took turns exploring the vast trails crisscrossing Mark's expansive property. The foggy day brought intermittent snow, perfect for thrilling rides through open fields and winding trails. As the day progressed, the girls retired for a nap while Mark and I, impervious to the cold, ventured into the woods. We tackled one of the trails we had traversed on the quad earlier, an ascent that promised breathtaking views if not for the heavy snowfall and fog. After a strenuous climb, we reached a spot that should have offered panoramic views had it not been obscured by the swirling snow and fog. Undeterred, we took a break, and as the snowfall intensified, doubts crept in. I questioned Mark for the third time if he knew the way back. Reassured, we began our descent into the blizzard. Suddenly, a strange moaning, humming sound emanated from behind us. Puzzled, we halted, listening intently. The inexplicable noises persisted, resembling neither animal sounds nor natural phenomena. Intrigued and unnerved, we quickened our pace, the haunting sounds following us. As we descended, the footsteps trailing us became increasingly audible. The dense fog and falling snow made it impossible to spot our pursuer. Convinced it wasn't an animal and unnerved by the footsteps, we raced downhill. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket, revealing Lisa's frantic messages, her fear palpable through the texts. Responding was challenging with wet gloves, but her messages conveyed their terror of seeing Mark and me outside, instilling an urgent sense of dread. Upon reaching the cabin, the girls revealed their own distressing encounter. They had glimpsed two figures outside, one pausing at the window to peer inside. With tension escalating, Mark retrieved a gun from his dad's room, a precautionary measure for the unknown threat lurking in the woods. Later that evening, our movie night was disrupted by an aggressive knock at the door. Fearful glances exchanged, John grabbed the gun, contemplating a confrontational approach. Opting for silence, we endured a nerve-wracking half-hour until the knock ceased. The night was spent in vigilance, with Mark and me opting for the living room to remain alert. Morning brought relief, and we hastily packed, leaving the unsettling cabin behind. An eerie detail lingered, the absence of footprints in the snow outside the cabin, a stark contrast to the previous night's ominous events. As we departed, the mystery of that haunting night remained unresolved, buried beneath layers of snow, awaiting its next unsuspecting visitor.